This is Johnny, the chubby, Caucasian, Christian, closeted conservative. Some might say I'm everything wrong with the world, but don't take their word for it. Make up your own mind. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Chubby Caucasian Christian Closeted Conservative. Let's jump right into some Newsom news.
You know, Stephanie, that middle-class families in Texas pay more taxes than middle-class Californians. Look that up. That's a fact.
I believe in 2024, Joe Biden is not going to run for president. He's either going to get primaried. I think he's sick and going to say he's not running. Gavin Newsom is on the bench ready to go. No one else can touch this man. So we have to begin to prepare now for when Gavin Newsom starts to make that step. Every time legacy media puts out a good story about Gavin Newsom, we need to remember what is actually happening in California. So I'm looking at statistics released in August of 2022 related to homicides and crime in California. CBS wrote a beautiful piece on this, but they left several statistics out. The total number of reported homicides in the state increased by 7.2% year to year, and this would go from 2,202 in 2020 to 2,361 in 2021. So homicides have increased, but the total arrest rate has decreased. So this would be 2,812 people arrested in 2020 to 2,606 in 2021. This is continuing a year-to-year downward trend that began in 2004 when the total arrest rate was 5,385. So we have more crime in California. However, the arrest rate has decreased. This is the statistic the CBS article left out. In 2021, 660 civilians were involved in incident that involved the discharge of a firearm or use of force resulting in serious bodily injury or death of those with civilians. 50.6 were Hispanic, 25% were white, and 17.6% were black. In 2021, 1,462 officers were involved in incidents that involved the discharge of a firearm. That's more than double. That's double of the citizens that were involved in serious incidents. Even the liberal Attorney General of California said, as we confront these ongoing challenges, we must have accountability and appropriate consequences for those who break the law. I have been reading from the California Criminal Justice Statistics Report for 2021 released by that same Attorney General. And this has been your Newsom News.
You know, Stephanie, that middle-class families in Texas pay more taxes than middle-class Californians. Look that up. That's a fact.
So we gotta chew the fat about the Mar-a-Lago Raid. I've been doing a lot of research on this, and unfortunately there's not a whole lot of information. At this time, no one has really said anything, but I'm looking at a CNN article here, the most trusted name in news, and it talks about prosecutors confront Justice Department guidelines to generally avoid bringing political sensitive cases close to an election. It says, during a meeting in the DOJ, officials also discussed the timing of an possible indictment given the sensitivity of bringing a political connected case close to an election. The Justice Department memorandum advises prosecutors against bringing any case or taking any overt investigative steps with the purpose of impacting an election or providing an advantage or disadvantage to any candidate. Garland issued a memo in May to prosecutors reiterating the department's stance on election year sensitivity. The memo is one attorneys generals send every year during an election and generally advise prosecutors about avoiding making major investigative or charging decisions near an election to avoid the perception of partisan motives. This is all really great information. There have been some quarrels in the Justice Department about moving forward with the investigation even though Joe Biden is not on the ballot. Oh, this is the wrong article. I've been reading an article about Hunter Biden. Oh, man. It's very interesting. This article is from CNN. Federal investigation of Hunter Biden reaches critical junction, sources say. This is from July 20th, 2022. This is less than a month away from the Mar-a-Lago raid. And all of this CNN bull crap article. All they talk about is how if they make any further investigation on the Hunter Biden case, that it will show partisan. Now, to all you liberal Larrys and Lindas out there who claim to walk the morally ethical high road, to fight for the least of us, the weakest of us, I will even give you a pass. Let's all find common ground and just look over all of the drugs and sex that is on the Hunter Biden laptop. I've been called not a very good Christian for 6 years because Donald Trump said that he touched women inappropriately and I voted for him. But the guy who abused drugs and women, I'll give you a pass on that one. We'll all look past Hunter Biden and his sister-in-law girlfriend and just agree that both Hunter Biden and Donald Trump are being investigated by the FBI and DOJ. I would say the spectrum is massive between the two criminal allegations, but to find common ground with the radical liberal Larrys and Lindas out there, we're willing to minimize it down to just, sure, they're both being investigated by the DOJ and FBI for possible felonies. And now let's focus on how they're actually treating these two cases. Now, this CNN article is not labeled as an op-ed, so I'm just going to assume that it is fact. And I would like to think that we can apply these same facts to the current Trump Mar-a-Lago raid. This CNN article states, it must state 3 or 4 times, that it's unprecedented to move forward with an investigation that it may affect politics during an election season. Then laughably, the article almost seems to argue with itself as to whether that rule should be applied because Joe Biden is not on the ballot or not. And then towards the end of it, it's like, well, we'll just play it safe. We don't want to give advantage to one party over the other, so let's just agree not to move forward with it. The CNN article was written 3 weeks before the Mar-a-Lago raid. And the tone, people forget about that. The tone has completely changed. And it's completely inconsistent. And I don't know why I expect more from the Democratic Party. To sit there and say, oh, well, we can't move forward with the Hunter Biden investigation because of elections. Raid Donald Trump's house. He has classified documents. Oh, well, I know Joe Biden. I mean, they elaborate in this article. Well, Joe Biden's not really, even though he's not, on the ballot this year, it still could sway someone to one political party or the next. Oh, well, Donald Trump's not on the ballot, so this doesn't really matter. This is actually the perfect time to raid his house and look for classified documents that we apparently saw just a couple months ago. Now, before we get into the facts and reading articles about this Mar-a-Lago raid, there's something that we all have to find common ground on, and even the radical libs will have to come to some sort of rationalization about this. If the January 6th and this Mar-a-Lago raid turn out a big old goose egg, Donald Trump will be the most vetted politician ever. We did Russia. There was nothing. We did the second impeachment with January 6th. Now we're doing basically a third impeachment on the January 6th committee run by 9 individuals who have already voted to impeach Trump based on January 6th. One of the individuals led that investigation and impeachment against Donald Trump for the January 6th. Now, personally, this is my opinion, YouTube. I don't have any sources or haven't read any articles about this, but I believe that is what this Mar-a-Lago raid was all about. It was about January 6th. I don't really believe that they planted anything there. I think that 95% of FBI agents are relatively good people, just following orders, trying to do the best that they can. But we're talking about a top select few of the FBI and the DOJ that lean radical left that cannot control their hatred for Donald Trump. Donald Trump lives in their brain rent free, and they have nothing on the January 6th, and this was a fishing expedition. I could be wrong, but they need to find something other than a cocktail napkin. They need to find something that directly links him to Putin or some other world leader, that he's made promises to them, that he's given them money, a quid pro quo of some massive scale. Now, I want to play a clip for you. This is the statement made almost 4 days after the Mar-a-Lago raid by Merrick Garland. It's crazy it took them 4 days. So this clip is 4 minutes long. I apologize, but with the primaries coming up and the 2024 election right around the corner, The conservative and the Republican Party cannot go in half-cocked. We have to know the facts. So I want to play the entire clip for you because it's very important. This is almost 4 days after the raid, and of course, we all knew the man was going to take questions, but this is what he says.
Good afternoon. Since I became Attorney General, I have made clear that the Department of Justice will speak through its court filings and its work. Just now, the Justice Department has filed a motion in the Southern District of Florida to unseal a search warrant and property receipt relating to a court-approved search that the FBI conducted earlier this week. That search was of premises located in Florida belonging to the former president. The department did not make any public statements on the day of the search. The former president publicly confirmed the search that evening, as is his right. Copies of both the warrant and the FBI property receipt were provided on the day of the search to the former president's counsel, who was on site during the search. The search warrant was authorized by a federal court upon the required finding of probable cause. The property receipt is a document that federal law requires law enforcement agents to leave with the property owner. The department filed the motion to make public the warrant and receipt in light of the former president's public confirmation of the search, the surrounding circumstances, and the substantial public interest in this matter. Faithful adherence to the rule of law is the bedrock principle of the Justice Department and of our democracy. Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor. Under my watch, that is precisely what the Justice Department is doing. All Americans are entitled to the even-handed application of the law, to due process of the law, and to the presumption of innocence. Much of our work is by necessity conducted out of the public eye. We do that to protect the constitutional rights of all Americans and to protect the integrity of our investigations. Federal law, long-standing department rules, and our ethical obligations prevent me from providing further details as to the basis of the search at this time. There are, however, certain points I want you to know. First, I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter. Second, the department does not take such a decision lightly. Where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means as an alternative to a search and to narrowly scope any search that is undertaken. Third, let me address recent unfounded attacks on the professionalism of the FBI and Justice Department agents and prosecutors. I will not stand by silently when their integrity is unfairly attacked. The men and women of the FBI and the Justice Department are dedicated, patriotic public servants. Every day, they protect the American people from violent crime, terrorism, and other threats to their safety while safeguarding our civil rights. They do so at great personal sacrifice and risk to themselves. I am honored to work alongside them. This is all I can say right now. More information will be made available in the appropriate way and at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Mr. Attorney General, the former president said this FBI agents.
I know that's a lot of audio, but like I said before, it's important to know exactly what you're talking about. All of these other mainstream media, they're going to play snippets, cuts here and there. This is the entire thing. You get in an argument with a liberal, Linda or Larry, you just pull up my podcast, play it right here. This is what Merrick Garland said. Now, on August 25th, Slow Joe was finally asked a question about this and did answer the question. I really appreciate it.
How much advance notice did you have of the FBI's plan to search Mar-a-Lago?
I didn't have any advance notice. None. Zero. Not one single bit.
Someone needs to let me on this PR team. Because let me tell you what, we had the same problem with Afghanistan. I wish he would have used the word, I don't recall getting any advance notice, because that would have fit in with the whole narrative here. But let me just give some advice to Slow Joe in the White House. When you don't make any comments, don't answer any questions, don't have any press conferences, don't engage with the media at all on just little stupid stuff. When something big like Mar-a-Lago or Afghanistan happens and then you continue not to answer questions, number one, it looks like you're hiding something. And number two, you look like an idiot. So answer the questions on the small stuff. Now, personally, I've said this before and I will continue to say this. I believe President Joe Biden is sick. I really honestly think he is sick. I have a lot of trouble believing someone was in politics for 50 years. I've heard other stuff that he said in Congress, and compared to now, even at the beginning of his presidency, compared to now, just the way he talks, it's very different. The change is drastic. He didn't recall Milley telling him that we should have left troops there. And now he doesn't remember, he got 0 advance notice on the raid at Mar-a-Lago. I have another article I want to read a little bit from. This is another CNN article. It's a little bit older than the last one. Does the FBI's decision break with precedent? Everything about this is beyond precedent. There's never been a major party nominee under FBI investigation leading up to the election before, and how it's being handled is equally out of the ordinary. The leader of the FBI gave advance notice to top officials at the Justice Department before sending his letter to lawmakers Friday, but he didn't get sign-off from those officials and wasn't seeking it. Instead, he made an independent decision to go against long-standing Justice Department and FBI practices to not comment publicly about politically sensitive investigation within 60 days of an election. The DOJ's decision added to the unusual role he has played in the Clinton email probe? Oh, wait. This article is from October of 2016. I'll continue. Comey's decision adds to the unusual role he has played in the Clinton email probe, which some critics have said usurped the role of the prosecutors in the Justice Department, whose job is to review the FBI findings and make decisions whether to bring charges. Comey made the unprecedented move in July to publicly announce that he would recommend no charges be brought in the email investigation, saying that there is no reasonable prosecutor that would bring such charges. This article is titled Clinton's FBI Investigation, What You Need to Know, from CNN. This was published October 30th, 2016. Towards the bottom of this article, it says, Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid said in a letter to Comey on Sunday that he may have violated the Hatch Act bearing political activity by federal officials. I'm writing to inform you that my office has determined that these actions may violate the Hatch Act, Reid said in his letter. Through your partisan actions, you may have broken the law. Clinton's campaign is focused largely on the reality that Comey's actions are out of step with the Justice Department and FBI. But now that Comey has made his move, the political consequences can't be undone, says CNN. I want all the DOJ precedents and FBI precedents to be applied equally. They need to have something more than a cocktail napkin. It needs to be bigger than Hunter Biden's laptop. And I am not talking about the naked pictures and the crack and everything disgusting on his laptops. I am talking about possible emails between him and foreign officials relating to his dad while his dad was vice president. I don't get hung up on the naked pictures, crack cocaine, hookers, the N-word. Apparently that's all over there, the N-word. That's for the woke. I'm waiting for them to release a statement on that. But it needs to be something bigger than his sons working with foreign officials to gain access to him while he was president. It needs to be something bigger than having classified documents and emails on a private server. It needs to be something big. Maybe there is evidence in there that he is working with Putin somehow. Doesn't really line up with the actions that he took while he was president, but it's possible. Maybe there is something in there that relates him to January 6th. Maybe there's documents in there that put some of our foreign assets at risk. Maybe. I'm happy it's a hard copy in a box instead of unsecured private server that could be hacked by foreign intelligence. Let's listen to a little bit about what Comey found during their second investigation into the Hillary Clinton emails.
Now let me tell you what we found. Although we did not find clear evidence that Secretary Clinton or her colleagues intended to violate laws governing the handling of classified information, there is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information. None of these emails should have been on any kind of unclassified system, but their presence is especially concerning because all of these emails were housed on unclassified personal servers, not even supported by full-time security staff like those found at agencies and departments of the United States government, or even with a commercial email service like Gmail. And while not the focus of our investigation, we also developed evidence that the security culture of the State Department, in general, and with respect to the use of unclassified systems in particular, was generally lacking in the kind of care for classified information that's found elsewhere in the U.S. government. With respect to potential computer intrusion by hostile actors, we did not find direct evidence that Secretary Clinton's personal email domain, in its various configurations since 2009, was hacked successfully. But given the nature of the system and of the actors potentially involved, we assess we would be unlikely to see such direct evidence. We do assess that hostile actors gained access to the private commercial email accounts of people with whom Secretary Clinton was in regular contact from her personal account. We also assess that Secretary Clinton's use of a personal email domain was both known by a large number of people and readily apparent. She also used her personal email extensively while outside the United States, including sending and receiving work-related emails in the territory of sophisticated adversaries. Given that combination of factors, we assess it is possible that hostile actors gained access to Secretary Clinton's personal email account. Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. In looking back at our investigations into the mishandling or removal of classified information, we cannot find a case that would support bringing criminal charges on these facts. To be clear, this is not to suggest that in similar circumstances, a person who engaged in this activity would face no consequences. To the contrary, those individuals are often subject to security or administrative sanctions, but that's not what we're deciding now. As a result, although the Department of Justice makes final decisions on matters like this, we are expressing to Justice our view that no charges are appropriate in this case.
My favorite part about that is when he talks about just regular common people. If it had been you, you would have suffered security and administrative sanctions. And let's remember how we got here. Of course, you know, Hillary Clinton had a very good friend, Anthony Weiner, who could do nothing other than think about the wiener and was sexting a 15-year-old girl. When they were investigating that, they came across additional emails that Hillary did not disclose to the FBI when she was initially investigated. James Comey here gives a number of reasons why they didn't overturn them. Most likely they didn't look for them well. It's possible that they could have lied about it, that they could have hid it. It's possible that they didn't look for them good enough on purpose. So we've talked about how 2 current FBI investigations are being handled by the FBI and interpreted to us through the media. That's the Hunter Biden and the current Mar-a-Lago raid. Then we've discussed Hillary Clinton's email, classified email on her own private server, and how there was not enough. The FBI, James Comey, did not see enough to bring a case like this. And lastly, I would like to take you back in time just a little bit further. The year is 2003. Sandy Berger, who was President Clinton's national security advisor, intentionally pled guilty to intentionally taking and destroying copies of classified documents from the National Archive. He did this, supposedly, to prepare for the 9/11 Commission. He went in September of 2003. When he left, the National Archives was missing some documents. According to Fox News, when he returned in October, they observed him. And CNN, Fox News, and USA Today all agree that in October, when he left, he had documents in his pants, his jacket, and a leather-bound bag that he carried around with him. These documents not only included documents from the National Archives, but 40 or 50 pages worth of his notes that he was supposed to leave there as well. When the National Archives reached out to him, similar to they did with Donald Trump. They reached out to him to recover these documents. He lied about it. He brought some of them back and lied about the rest of them. And how was Berger treated by the media during this incident? Let me read a snippet from a Washington Post article. And I'm quoting, "Berger was known as someone who would consistently lose track of papers or appointments without subordinates to keep him organized and on schedule. For all of those who know and love him, it's easy to see how this could happen. That Mr. Berger, if his head wasn't attached to him, it would wind up in his pants and cut up with scissors in his office." Not only did this man take documents from the National Archives, but then he destroyed them. And then he's going to turn around to the American people and say, "I did this to prepare for the 9/11 Commission?" According to a 2005 NBC article, the charge, this was at the time, I know things have changed, but at the time, the charge of unauthorized removal and retention of classified materials is a misdemeanor that carries a maximum sentence of a year in prison and up to a $100,000 fine. However, under a plea agreement, Berger would serve no jail time, but instead pay a $10,000 fine and surrender his security clearance for 3 years and cooperate with investigators. I read a CNN article where he was also given some community service time. Back in 2017, Trump got in trouble for showing some documents to Russians that were meeting him in the Oval Office. James Rashes was quoted saying, "The minute the president speaks about it to someone, he has the ability to declassify anything at any time without any process." Of course, PolitiFact did a fact check on this and found that it was mostly true. Experts agreed, I'm reading this article, experts agreed that the president, as commander-in-chief, is ultimately responsible for classification and declassification of documents. The president, after all, is the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States, according to Article 2 of the Constitution. The court's majority wrote, "His authority to classify and control access to information bearing on national security flows primarily from the constitutional investments of power in the president and exists quite apparent from any explicit congressional grant." This PolitiFact fact check lists 2 caveats for why they rate this mostly true. One of them is based on some legal precedent, and the other one is merely opinion. The first one states that if Donald Trump did classify these documents when he showed it to the Russian, that they should be available to anyone who files a Freedom of Information Act. The second caveat is that this PolitiFact fact check goes on to debate whether it's sensible to show these documents to the Russians. They actually interview John Pike, who is a global security, and he said it may be legal, but it may not be sensible. That's some fact check there. The Wall Street Journal, and I'm going to leave you with this. The Wall Street Journal published an article, "The Mar-a-Lago Affidavit, Is That All There Is?" A federal judge on Friday released a heavily redacted version of the FBI affidavit used to justify the search of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home, and you can't help but wonder, is that it? Is this why agents descended on a former president's residence like they would a mob boss? This article goes on to say it's possible the redactions in the 38 pages release contains some undisclosed bombshell, but given the contours of what the affidavit and attachments reveal, this really does seem to boil down to a fight over the handling of classified documents. This Wall Street article says, but that didn't mean the FBI and Justice Department had to resort to a warrant and federal agent search that they knew would redolent of criminal behavior. They had to suggest probable cause of criminal acts to get their warrant, which they knew would create a political firestorm. Instead, they could have gone to a district court and sought an order for the proper handling and storage of documents. If they did this and Mr. Trump failed to comply, then he could have been held in contempt. This Wall Street Journal says the search on Mar-a-Lago was disappropriate to the likely offense. And then it goes on to talk about some of the things we've already talked about. Attorney General Merrick Garland would have to explain to the public why Trump's behavior was so much more nefarious than other cases of mishandled classified documents. This includes former National Secretary Advisor Sandy Berger, who pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor, and Clinton, who got off. We have a 2-tier justice system in America. For people like Hunter Biden and Hillary Clinton, these investigations take years, and heaven forbid they happen around an election, and we can't get involved in that. But for Republicans and Donald Trump, they get raids on their houses for simple NIRA violation. Liberal Larrys and Lindas hate this man so much, and they are scared in 2024. They are scared. So they have to find something. And I would not be surprised if we don't find out anything waiting until closer to November of this year or in 2024. It's all going to be centered around elections, either the 2022 election or the 2024 election. Thank you so much for joining me today. Every article and soundbite video is all posted on all of my social media. I am everywhere now. I am on Tumblr, Blogger, Facebook, Minds, Parler, Twitter, and yes, even Truth Social. Just search the Chubby Caucasian Christian Closeted Conservative and look for my eagle. I had a family member paint that eagle and I loved it so much that she gave me the original. She's very patriotic. Please go over to her Redbubble account. Just check some of her artwork out. Go to Redbubble and search Robin N. Brown. That's Robin the bird and the letter Brown the color. Go over there and check it out. Please remember to rate, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you later.